Hello everyone and welcome back to Sekien no Inganock. Thank God we didn't have a huge ass pause after the last episode, right? This one's actually coming out at a decent time afterwards. Pretty great, right? Let's continue, shall we? Because we're just at chapter 7. We're just beginning it. Let's go ahead and start up my voice, even if it doesn't reach you now. The old cat said he didn't need any help. He said it had meaning only because he did it alone. Even so, he had tried to assist the old cat. The boy told him it was probably all right. He nonchalantly touched her shoulder. It might have been the first time he'd ever touched Kia's body. As he thought about that, the old cat roared at the edge of his vision. What? What? Hold on. Can we just appreciate the fact that the food can is getting, some dialogue here? Just the dots? I mean, even if it doesn't start talking. That's fucking weird, right? Regardless, can we just point out how great Iru is as a character? His fucking craziness and his he's great. I like him so much. Let's go. A small aqueduct near crowded street. Old teacher Iru was casting his fishing pole as always. Old teacher Iru caught nothing good, as always. This was the 5th time the boy had spectated. He was much younger than the first time he saw it. He got excited along with Iru back then. Now it wasn't any fun at all. It was much more fun to go to an illegal dance hall in infinitely crowded street and party all night. When he says illegal dance hall, does he mean a strip club? All the girls and boys his age felt the same way, although everyone has enjoyed watching the old teacher fishing at least once. Now no one saw it as fun. They preferred alcohol and drugs. But this girl was different. The boy looked at Kia out of the corner of his eye. He tried acting like he was having fun, the way he did the first time. I hate Mize so much. And did he just say he takes drugs? I hate him even more. Fuck that kid. Mize, get away from Kia!
いつも子供を引っ掛けてるって意味だから。キアのことじゃないよ。 君は、立派なレディだし。
Yes, a wonderful lady. Little Kia was more grown up than any of his friends. There was only one thing he didn't like. The lone man who looked their way every now. Even now. The traveling Dr. Guy. To the boy, he was just a stupid man who continued to throw his talent in the aqueduct instead of making money. He remembered his parents' words. All citizens below the 7th class were impoverished, foolish beings. Now that made sense to him. That man Guy definitely was poor and foolish. But this girl had nothing to do with that.
立派なレディーだし。
何の話？ああ、そうだよ。君はレディだ。
本当に？
本当だよ。なあ、カラス？
そうかしら。
She showed him a soft smile. Neither his parents nor friends had a face like that. He couldn't help but find it blinding. The boy thought about the sun, said to shine on the other side of the gray sky. He was sure it'd feel a lot like this.
キア、そろそろ時間のようだ。ギーが呼んでいるよ。
はい。ノース様、釣りを見せてくれてありがとうございました。ごきげんよう。リース君もまたね。
またね。
怪我も病気もしないでね。じゃあまた。
Kia rushed towards the traveling doctor, leaving the boy with an exceptionally bright smile. Something vexed him. Something saddened him. Why was she with that man? Fucking hate you, Mize. Why was Kia so happy living with a man who couldn't even take care of himself? While watching them leave, the boy sighed to himself.
そういった感情はわしは離れて久しいものだ。ミス、君には無限の若さが溢れている。
何ですか？笑えるとでも言いたいんですか？
ああ、そうだ。とても君は微笑ましくわしの瞳に映る。好きなのね。
一目惚れだよ。
Fucking hate you, Mize. Hate that kid. Chapter 7, My Voice, Even If It Doesn't Reach You Now. Seriously, no matter how fucking of a sad story Mize is gonna have, I fucking hate him. Seriously. Hate that kid. Infinitely Crowded Street. The 12th Metropolitan Monorail Station on the 7th tier. I got caught up in my hate for fucking Mize there and fucked shit up. Guy stood on the station, waiting for the monorail. It wasn't the station closest to his apartment, but it was the closest direct line to where he was going. Kia stood by his side, her smile still not wearing thin. He could tell without looking at her face. The small hand he held was warmer than usual. Today's workplace was different. She must have been looking forward to it. She seemed to be in a rather good mood.
楽しい場所ではないんだ。水を差すこともない。それに特別嫌な場所でもない。
Frankly, Guy didn't feel one way or the other about the place. The place we're going to today. The upper tier. A direct line to the upper tier staircase. From there, they'd transition to an ascended gondola. It had probably been 10 years since Guy last went up there to study at the upper tier university. The city's upper tier, a special ward completely closed off from the lower tiers where the aristocrats controlled the city. It wasn't a place one could go whenever they wanted. Normally, the upper-tier soldiers would immediately execute anyone who intruded above the third upper-tier park. Trialless execution. No one in the lower tiers was allowed to go to the upper. The gates to the ascending gondola were locked away. Those who walked up the spirals of the upper-tier staircases were met with death at the hands of the upper tier soldiers. No one could climb to the upper tier. And that's how it is usually. However,
なんだって貴族の治療僕の
なんだよその顔は。私が冗談を言うとでも心外だな。そういう悪ふざけはお前さんの先輩特許だよ。私のじゃない。私も詳しい話は知らないがね、馴染みの情報屋が持ってきた話なんだ。なんだってまあお前さんばっかりが。
いいのかいエラリ
何？
ー話が本当なら乗客中の乗客だ。僕に来るような話じゃないだろ。
まあそれね。普段なら私がもらう話だ。例えば仮想の第2層の資産家だって普段から最下層を歩くお前を嫌がる。ふさわしいのはお前さんじゃない。確かにそれはその通りではあるんだがね。
his old friend eerily. He was glad the man could talk to him without any modesty. It used to be a bad thing, but nowadays it went a long way for him. Guy shrugged his shoulders. None of the words his old friend spoke were false. Traveling doctors who walked in the lowest tiers were hated. They were unclean, easily catching and spreading highly infectious diseases. Normally, that's what the wealthy think, whether it's true or not.
それでも僕なんかエラ
上層とも仮想第1層第2層とも一切のつながりを持たないクラッキング毒をご所望だ。君も多少の顧客は第2層あたりにいる。それでもつながりなんかないも同然だろ。どうせ流し歩いただけなんだ。
まあね。
そこでお前の出番。金持ちとパイプを維持しない変人のクラッキングと。
貴族は苦手だよ。期待に添えるとは思わない。
連中のことが大好きなやつなんてどこにいる。その点じゃお前さんも他も変わらないよ。せいぜい多くのシリングを稼いできてくれ。もちろん情報屋と私への仲介料だ。大丈夫さ、ギー。
It was just as he said. He had no difficulty making arrangements to go to the upper tiers. The young aristocrat man, Kurtz Hiram Abif. Guy headed to the upper tier in order to heal him. The ascending gondola had received an order and opened its gates. Guy was breathing fairly heavily despite himself. The direct line still hadn't come. On weekdays, there weren't that many monorails heading to the upper staircases. He'd have to wait a little longer. He could tell he was in a bad mood. He'd never had a good impression of the upper tier. The aristocrats had abandoned the lower tiers. They'd protected only themselves from the chaos, leaving the citizens in the mists of suffering. The phenomenon equation, experiment, and cracking engines. Those two technological advances were their saving grace. City management, with authority granted by the upper tier, was busy gathering information for enforcing city law. They'd never try to save anyone. Yes, the city law. The law of death, legislated in the name of the Grand Prince, that showed the meaning of the aristocrats more than anything. City law. For the stated purpose of maintaining economic activity, countless people in the lower tier were culled. I heave a sigh. I can't imagine myself healing an aristocrat.
どうしたの？顔色いつもより良くない。
いつもと変わらないよ。大丈夫。すまないね。楽しい気分を邪魔してしまった。
いいのそんなこと。あなたの具合の方が心配だもの。どこか痛いの？無理はしないで、キー。
大丈夫。
That's right. He hadn't been considerate enough. He let her see him sigh. Kia was tilting her head uneasily as she looked up at Guy. He opened his mouth, and chose his words carefully.
上層は好きになれなくてね。少し気が重いだけさ。
そう貴族様のことが嫌いなの？
どうかな。好きではないだけだ。
そう
あ、
As he said that, he thought, were those really my own words? He despised those who brought about city law, but in regard to the upper tier as a whole, how did they feel about the city law? What did they understand about the lower tiers? As individual humans, what did they think? Scorning the aristocrats would come after he found those answers. Guy wouldn't judge people by such distinctions. There were kind ogres and brutal palds, after all. Paldies? Fuck. Until he could exchange words with them, at least until then, he wouldn't think about it. Just like most of the people filling the city, he merely didn't like them.
貴族様。
It was a place deep below the city, the foundation of the lowest tier, close to the central pillar. Very, very deep underground, underneath the enormous city of Inganock, constructed atop a salt lake, buried under artificial soil. In infinite darkness that no one in the city dared to approach, a place where only one man went. My man Rudolph! There was no violent dragon there. No fairy tale dragons. In the present city, they spoke of it with terror. They said that the greatest of the creatures slept underground, and that only one man went down there. One madman. Digging holes. Underneath the city's lowest tiers, in the infinite darkness that no one dared to approach. Only one man held no fear of it. He'd touched an insanity close to the darkness itself. His name was Randolph. I forgot. The insane Randolph, the man who, within the darkness, held up a shining lantern powered by a small steam engine. Within the darkness that everyone feared, it is said that Randolph continued digging indifferently. Every day, every day, every day. Scratch, 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 scratch. Brush, 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 brush.
北東より季節風が来去り、大地は本日も航路を恐れて輝きは消えている。それでこそ我が楽しみ。憎むべき銀の鍵は現在でも国王をさまよって、門はどこかと問いかける。ああ、私は哀れ、本日も穴を掘る、穴を掘るとも。今夜はだいぶ多くなりました。柔らかい土。
He always said tonight, whether it was morning or midday or night. There certainly was no morning or midday there, since the sky was always covered in gray. However, there was a curtain of darkness that fell at night. Even after the city's countless streetlights turned on, no one could easily tell it was night. But it couldn't be helped. This man Randolph was insane. He shut his eyes away from many worlds, as if they were darkness itself.
またお前たちか。今夜はどんなようだ。銀の鍵はどこかで沈黙をしているから、私は今日はお前たちに時間を避けるのだ。なあ、子供たち。
He called out towards the darkness, to the same people he conversed with before, namely to the empty darkness itself. No one was there, and yet Randolph spoke.
またこんな老いぼれにいようとは暇なのか。何なんだね。今日は何があった。
This is the harvest season. They'll be harvested again, Oji-san. That was a definite voice. Or was it an illusion that only he could hear?
外ではもう秋だろうか。子供たち。不思議なことを。
Someone will be harvested again. Oji-san, stop them, Oji-san.
おお子供たち、この前とは同じこと無茶を言ってはいけないよ。私はほらこの通り穴を掘らなくてはいけないんだ。人柱は別のお人に頼みなさい。可愛い子供たち、もしくは子供よ。
You mustn't. You mustn't. They'll be harvested, Oji-san. Please stop the scythe. I'm begging you.
刈り取りには鎌は必要だ。何かの命を人は狩らねば生きられない。
No, Oji-san. It's not people. It's not me. It's not me either. Someone will be harvested.
変なことを言うやつだね。愛しい子供たち。お前たちが誰だか知らないんだ。人でないものでここは満ちている。
The man shook the dirt off of his shoulders. It had been produced by countless engines and was blackened by the infinite smog it had absorbed.
嫌な季節が来てしまったもの。
Fancy looking place. The city's upper tier. The standard third-class aristocrat ward. The ascending gondola's gates opened, revealing a ward of the city of Inganock's upper tier. Guy quickly chased his memories back to a certain place. Yes, even in the upper tier at the city's peak, the wards were divided by class, just like the lower tiers. But the scenery was completely different from the lower tiers. Rows of mansions with gravitas, telltale hints of greenery. But the biggest difference was its overall appearance. It was almost like a single massive castle. Each and every ward was connected in an enormous structural pattern. No one came to meet them. There weren't any people. It didn't feel like a simple row of houses. It had none of the sounds people made when living or walking about. There wasn't the slightest sense of life here. There was only the dignity of a castle. Guy sighed. His breath turned into white mist, probably because he was at the peak. He could feel the small hand he held. The strength gripping him was delicate.
すごいわ。街の中に木々があるのね。誰もいないけれど。
There certainly wasn't a single person in sight, although technically there was one person standing behind Guy and Kia. One upper-tier soldier who had accompanied them for some time now. He or she had been standing at the base of the upper-tier staircase, at the gates of the ascending gondola. Now it stood behind them as a bodyguard. The upper-tier soldier gazed at them both coercively. A gaze flowed down from its helmet. Its hidden eyes held an inorganic insecurity. When they were in the ascending gondola, Kia had turned around many times to look at the soldier. Then, when the scenery of the upper tiers filled her vision, her mouth fell agape, and she became oblivious to the upper-tier soldier behind her.
驚くな。キーヤは上層の人間ではないか。万が一の可能性だとは思っていたけれど。当然か。
Little Kia, whose hands he held, Guy consciously observed her expression. She wasn't smiling. Her expression hardened. It was different from the tension she displayed while looking at the upper-tier soldier. What was she thinking? What was she feeling?
ギー。ねえ、ギー。
なんだい？
なぜかしら。とても不思議な感じがする。
街路樹のせいかな。あれは仮装にはないからね。
Plants on the side of the road. No such thing existed in the lower tiers. That would be like throwing precious gems into the street. Outside of the upper tier staircase parks, greenery was expensive.
上層階段公園からの食事だそうだよ。公園のものほど緑は濃くないね。
違うの。
人通りがないのは貴族区だからさ。市民はいないからね。
There would have been servants 10 years ago. Guy hazily remembered that. But nowadays, automatons took their place, and they walked through underground passages, not on the streets. There were no people to be seen anywhere. The aristocrats themselves never went outside.
エンジン場所程度はいくらか通るはずだよ。貴族を乗せてね。
違うの、キ。何か変な感じ。胸がモヤモヤするの。
She furrowed her brows, as if enduring some kind of pain. What was she feeling? What was she thinking? Kia appeared to be having trouble breathing. He couldn't recognize the exact abnormalities. Actually, he couldn't even sense pain from her. Even so, Kia's furrowing her brows.
無理はしなくていい。僕もここは苦手だよ。先に戻るかい。両派を呼んで迎えに来てもらおう。
いいの。大丈夫、キ。大丈夫。少し驚いてしまっただけ。お仕事の邪魔しないわ、キ。クルツさんを助けてあげなきゃね、ドクターキ。
Kia says that, with an awkward smile. The Kurtz estate, located at the edge of the ward. Compared to the other mansions, it felt somewhat inferior, although that was only a relative comparison. Compared to the lower tiers, all the houses were incredibly extravagant. As they passed through the front gate, a carefully maintained courtyard spread out before them. The garden was placed in the space between the gates and the mansion. Not fake plants, but real greenery. It was different from the gardens on the first and second tier bourgeoisie. The sheer variety of the horticulture, and all of it was real. Thick green shrubberies, carefully pruned by an automaton's hands. The sculptures placed around the garden were probably made by artists outside of the city, valuable treasures that had existed for 10 years. A garden filled with treasures. It was hard to find imitations or synthetics of entire human bodies. But in the upper tier, these things were completely natural.
ようこそフルツの屋敷へ。あなたが九段のドクター・ギーね。連れがあるとは聞いていたけれど、まさか子連れとはね。
ご招待により長谷さん来ました。僕はキー。彼女はキーヤと言います。
はじめまして、レディ。ドクターの助手を務めています。
どうでもいいわ。早く彼に会ってちょうだい。早く直して。ああ、忘れていたわ。作法を心得ない人と話すのは初めてだからつい忘れてしまっていたわ。私はサラ・センケンネル、彼の友人、代理人よ。
The girl speaks with a fabricated expression. It wasn't Kurtz who'd come to greet them. It was an aristocrat woman by the name of Sarah Sentinel. He could already see several differences between her and lower-tier citizens. Her noble tattoo, her delicate, brightly colored dress. Even her pronunciation of the common allied tongue was different. Kia couldn't take her eyes off the girl's dress, and for good reason. It was superior even to custom apparel from the first-tier clothing industries. Specialized, hand-picked craftsmanship from the lower tiers had sewn that dress together with real skill. Silk. Silk threads were produced in one of the few existing silkworm factories. a first-class good, never used in synthetics. It was in a league of its own. Kia and Gi could understand its beauty without being told.
お姫様では
お姫様では正真正銘のね。彼女は上級貴族だ。
He'd heard her name before. The name Sentinel was well known even in the lower tiers. Count Sentinel, head of one of the 3 aristocrat families trusted by the Grand Prince. She must have been a blood relative of his.
無駄なおしゃべりをするつもりはないの。早く彼に会って。屋敷の中で彼が待ってる。案内するわ。
Escort? This woman would escort her herself. Something felt amiss. Come to think of us, she was greeting them alone. The daughter and successor of Count Sentinel would personally escort them, without any of the automatons working in the mansion. It was a strange sensation. If he were to take her words at face value, she would be no different from a lower-tier woman asking Gi to heal her husband. Gi followed Sarah's gaze. It fell behind Gi and Kia. Out to the upper-tier soldier standing outside the gate, waiting for Gi and Kia to return. The upper-tier soldier bothers her. Why?
シリングなら思うがまま払ってあげる。だから早く彼を助けてあげて。
The room was enveloped in a certain fragrance, either herbs or a perfume. They stood in a large bedroom Sarah Sentinel had guided them to, the innermost place of the mansion. They must have been walking through corridors for 10 whole minutes. It was the smallest of the aristocrat mansions in that ward, and yet its sheer vastness confused Gi's senses. A vacant mansion, no humans, not even automatons. Nothing even suggested the presence of other relatives living there, or of any automatons performing housework. In the innermost room was a human, probably the only person living in that mansion.
ありがとう。よくここまでおいでくださいました。はじめまして、ドクター。それに可愛らしいお嬢さんも。長旅でお疲れでしょう。どうか座ってくつろいでください。
王子様みたい。
キア、失礼な。
ごめんなさい、ミスター。
A prince, huh? It did make sense for her to say that. He certainly was an upper-tier aristocrat. From a lower-tier citizen's point of view, he truly was a prince. He wore a high-quality private robe, inferior to Sarah Sentinel's in many ways, glasses with real glass lenses. A noble fragrance fit well.
構いませんよ。もっとも、私は王子ではありませんがね。私はここの主人、クルツヒラのアビフ、上層貴族の準3級男爵です。突然にお呼び立てしてしまい、申し訳ない。ドクター、お嬢さん。
はじめまして。サークル2ヒラムアビフ。第7層巡回医師、ギーです。この子はキア。僕の助手を務めています。
I'm calling her my assistant. Regardless of the facts, it's convenient for introductions. He'd become used to bringing Kia with him. He'd brought her along here as well, like it was the natural thing to do. Ruaha was still in the apartment. It would have been fine to just leave her there. However, Gi brought Kia along. There was barely any difference between today's healing and walking the lower tiers. There was no need to behave any differently. Yes, that's what he told himself.
ごきげんよう。はじめまして。ミスターサークルツヒラムアビフ。
クルツで結構ですよ。すでにアビフの名はあまりにも持たない。
何よそれ。意味がないことがあるもんですか。あなたはヒラムアビフ家の当主なのよ。もっと堂々としていなさい。あと無理して起き上がってこないで。わざわざ礼服まで着て何なの？
いいんだよサラ。横になっていても変わらないんだか
安静にしてろってうちの医者にも言われたでしょ。
大きな声を出さないで。お客様の前で。
知らない。診察が終わったら呼んで。
Sarah said that and left the room. She closed the door violently behind her. Kia's eyes were wide open. That certain was violent for a princess. Sarah, Kurtz. Guy still hadn't heard the nature of the relationship. Why was Count Sentinel's successor in a mansion of a standard third-class aristocrat?
関係ないことだ。僕は彼を治療する。さあクルツ、では診察を始めます。
気が早いですね。もう少しお休みになられては。
クラック使いの診察はごく簡単なものです。まずはあなたの体を見ましょう。あなたの自覚している症状なども一緒に教えていただきます。
Yes, it's best to ask him. I still don't know anything about his symptoms. Neither Eerily nor the informants had mentioned them. The request was only to find a cracking dock. No information was available on the actual disease or injury.
わかりました。では、申し訳ありません。はい。少し部屋を出ていていただけますか。男同士以外では話しにくいこと。
でもキアは助手なので。
キア、すまない。
はい、ドクター。
After hesitating for a while, Kia nodded and did as they said. She went out the same door as Sarah and walked down the corridor, repeatedly worrying about Guy. She'd experienced a situation like this before. There were patients who didn't want anyone to know their symptoms. Instead, they chose to keep them secret with their doctor. Kia left the room and closed the door, soundlessly. The well-kept hinges didn't make a sound. Considering the door's size, it was well made.
失礼ですが、サークルツ。お屋敷に自動人形は見えませんでしたか。
ああ、ねえ、お恥ずかしい話ですが、我が家が抱えている自動人形はないんです。屋敷の手入れは王にサラの連れてくる自動人形が行いますから。
庭園は
あれは私が手入れをしています。ああ、サラには内緒にしてくださいね。
ええ、
幼馴染なんです、彼女と。だからよく私の面倒を見てくれ。
なるほど。
Ah, the classic childhood friend trope.
いえ。では始めましょう。気を楽にして。クラッキング口が出ますが驚かないで。始めます。
He activated his cranial organs. His brain worked the phenomenon equation, giving off light. Guy's right eye saw. It began to confirm whether or not Kurt's body was in its normal state.
いかがですか？
ええ。
All joints, level 3 strain. Muscle tissue, level 2 weakening. Sensory organs, level 1 weakening. The phenomenon equation's right eye passed through his skin and muscles, confirming the state of his internal organs. Abnormalities, within regards to basic homeostasis, numerous abnormalities.
肉体に残留する薬物の痕跡を発見。内臓への副作用を認識。
Though different from Magdal's, these definitely were symptoms of amneral poisoning. Those particular ones were often seen in ogres with high immunity. Physical exhaustion and extreme damage to internal organs. There was no hysteria, but everything else matched the other cases of amneral poisoning. This one was definitely a severe case.
アミネロールか。バカな。上層にドラッグが出回る。都市管理部はそれを許すわけがないのに。そもそも僕以外のクラッキングドッグを呼ぶこともできたはず。なぜこうなるまで放っておいた。なぜ僕は。
Kurtz had him a buff. His body, especially his internal organs, were in a horrific state of affairs. Organs which should have been functioning were performing a number of incorrect operations. Only the heart was moving without any damage. The rest of his body had largely succumbed to organ failure. Even the blood in his veins was impure.
人払いをしましたね、あなたは。ご自身の体に関して何かの異常を感じることはありますか？
歩くのも立つのも困難です。口だけはよく回ります。ですがそれ以外はいささか困難だ。
That was an understatement. His internal organs were literally dying. It was horrible. Restoration was possible, but potentially lethal. There was hardly anything to substitute with. He couldn't regenerate all of his organs with just this. Which organs held the highest priority? Which should be regenerated now? Lungs, liver, kidneys?
あなたの内臓は損傷しています。数多くの器官が機能低下の状態にある。何か心当たりはあるでしょうか？サークルツ、あなたは薬物を服用されていますか？
Admiral. He must be taking that.
どうでしょう。わかりません。
Scratch, 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 scratch. Brush, 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 brush. Deep underground, where no one's voice could reach, beneath all the city's lower tiers, and even lower than that, Randolph was digging holes tonight, as always. The underground madman dug holes while talking with someone who couldn't be seen. Scratch, 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 scratch. Brush, 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 brush.
隠されているものを暴く。穴を掘ることで得られる私の快感がそれだ。必要なのは水平角と黄金三角、そしてこのどんな土をも掘ってみせるスコップ。
A water square. A golden triangle?
星の復活は私に素晴らしい筋力と持久力を与えてくれたありがたいことだ。しかし元の私はとてもとても悲劇だった。死の暗がりを恐れていたのだ。ああ、恥ずかしい恥ずかしい。何？恥ずかしいのはどうしてか？誰も見ていないのに何が恥ずかしいか？さてどうだ。
何なのあなた。ついてこないで。私、子供があまり好きじゃないの。
They walked down a long, long corridor. On the way, they went out to this garden and began walking through it instead. Would they go outside the mansion at this rate? Just after Kia thought that, Sarah spun around and spoke. I don't like children. Don't follow me. I'm no child. Kia's... I'm an adult. And that's what she usually said. But now...
ごめんなさい、レディ。あなたに聞きたいことがあったから。
私に聞いてどうするの？小さな助手さん。医者が必要なのはクルツ。私じゃないし、言うことはないわ。
聞きたいの。あなた、クルツさんのことが嫌い？
関係ないわ。
なぜ？
あなたにも関係のないこと。一階の助手風情が喋りかけないで。ただクルツを直せばいいの。そうすればいくらでもシリングをあげる。黙って彼を直しなさい。
Sarah's words were sharp. However, her expression didn't hold the same intensity. She was used to fabricating her expression. Kia averted her gaze. Sarah's natural expression had changed to one of strong will. That made her feel incredibly sad. Why? Why are you trying so hard to...
なぜ？あなたは彼のことが大好きなのに。
何です？
Shock began to mix into her expression. Just a little.
あなた、今、何と言ったの？
あなたは彼のことが好き。どうして彼に笑ってあげないの？
あなた、彼に、私のこと誰も。 行ったことなんかないのに断言できるの？
わかるわ。
Kia had been watching. Even for that short time she'd been watching them, Sarah's overpowering voice wasn't what shocked her. I know because I've been watching. I know the strong feelings this princess holds. Kia didn't know what brought about such feelings, but they were easily conveyed to her. The fact that Sarah wished for something, her eyes gazed at him with intense feelings.
あなたが自分以外の誰かを好きになってる。あなたにあるのね。そうよ。私はフルーツのことが好き。彼のためなら何でもするわ。あなたたちだって上層へ呼びつける。何でもするの。私は彼に何もできないから。
After the preliminary examination with the phenomenon equation, they decided to take a short break. Kurt's body was in an extreme state of exhaustion. On top of the organ damage he suffered, he was also losing strength. He couldn't be permitted for any long-term exertion. Guy told him to lie down and get some rest.
続きは明日にしましょう。あなたの現在最大の幹部を修復します。
できますかドクター。
前処しましょう。長期的な回復計画を立てます。あなたの肉体は疲弊しすぎている。クラッキング鋼でも瞬時には治せない。ですが不可能ではない。僕の腕は完璧とは程遠いものだ。です。あなたからの治療依頼です。あなたにも協力いただくことになります。
Specifically, I need him to stop taking Adderall. He needed to set up a rehabilitation program. Since Sarah was managing his mansion, he needed help from her.
依頼ですか。すみませんドクター。実は私は依頼をしていません。
今なんと？
彼女がサラが依頼したのです。
そうでしたか。なるほど。フィアンセでいらっしゃる。
まさか私にはもったいない。彼女は先見メル家の族女です。私とは無違いです。
ですがこの屋敷を管理しているのは彼女だと。あら、
僕は構わないと言っているんですがね。それでも彼女が来てくれるのです。毎日来てくれ。たとえ短い時間でもああして顔を見せてくれるのです。
The princess points to the sky and says,
見て、灰色の空。灰煙混じりの灰色雲に覆われて、太陽の輝きが雲越しにしか降り注がない。誰もこの空をきれいとは言わない。海と同じ。汚染されて元の色を失った空。でもね、クルツは空がきれいだというの。灰色雲に覆われていても日の光は地上へと降りてくる。わずかでもそれは光に違いない。
She looks at the sky harshly, similar to how one would glare at someone they hated. Kia approached Sarah and softly took her white tattooed hand. Why does Kia look so tall there? Maybe it's just like the angle of the picture, I don't know.
彼とは違う。彼の手はもうずっと震えが止まらない。こうして握ってあげたいと思うのに私はできない。
握ってあげて。彼はきっと喜んでくれる。
そうね。嫌な顔はしないと思う。でも私はできない。手を握って何を言えばいいの？何より強く彼の死がわかるのに。どんな顔をしてればいいのよ。そんなの私は誰にも教わらなかった。 ましい。自分以外の誰かと接する方法、それは貴族がずっと昔に捨てたものだわ。
Kia glanced down at the joined hands. Hers felt much softer than before. However, it still held clear resentment. Or was it towards herself, or someone else?
クルツなら少しは違うかもしれない。彼は他の貴族たちとは違うの。全然違う。彼だけに、私が知る中では彼だけがこの上層以外のことを考えていた。クルツだけが。自分のことなんか少しも考えないで仮想の人たちのことをいつも気にしてた。自分たちだけが何の苦もなく豪奢な暮らしを続けているのはおかしいっていつも
Kia doesn't know how unique that is. The education program enacted by the aristocrats, the way they cut themselves off from the lower tiers. To the aristocrats, the lower tiers were nothing more than slave labor. The people living in the lower tiers were nothing more than production units. They'd never had the chance to learn otherwise, at least not for the past 10 years. The upper tier and lower tier knew nothing about each other. The aristocrats knew nothing about the lower tiers, unless they used illegal means to make contact with them.
随分と無茶をしていたんだと思う。仮想の情報書庫に接触したりして。若い貴族たちを集めて会を開いていたわ。勉強会と言っていたけれど、上申書がいくつも作られて何度も何度も大公爵府へ送って。でも私のお父様も大公爵もクルツの言葉に耳を貸さなかった。上層貴族の委員会は彼を無視した。何も返答はなかったわ。勉強会に参加した貴族たちが離れて、それからすぐに。
She squeezed Kia's hand firmly. Some of Sarah's emotions leaked through their joined hands, so it was resentment. Anger towards someone, towards something huge, including herself.
彼が倒れてこうなってしまったのは勉強会が解散したすぐ後。何をしたっていうの？他のどんな貴族もあんな病気にかからない。彼だけが誰かのために何かをしようとした彼だけがどうして。
Drops fell onto her joined hands. Not rain, but tears. Kia didn't look up at Sarah's face. She didn't need to see it to know what it looked like. A small drop fell to the ground. Just one.
私にできるすべてをしたよ。でもダメ。私は何もできやしない。彼は毎日口にするの。死んだ後のこと。この提案を私にくれる。これしかもう残ったものはないから。
She felt something through her hand. Something beyond words. Something from within Sarah.
嬉しくない。こんなものいくつもらったって。彼がいないここにどんな価値があるっていうの？
Ah, so that was it. That must have been it. Kia thought about this princess, this person named Sarah. She has no one else to save her. Scratch, 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 scratch. Brush, 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 brush. Deep underground, where no one's voice could reach, beneath all the city's lower tiers, then even lower than that, Randolph was digging holes tonight as always. The underground madman dug holes while talking with someone who could not be seen. Scratch, 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 scratch. Brush, 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 brush.
手が寂しいな。この手に握られるものは黄金のスコール。そして輝ける彼方の空からのランタンと私の持つ穴を掘る勇気だけなわけだが、足りないものは足りない、足りない。何？足りないものは他の誰かが持っている。一人で求めようとしても意味がない。さてどうだったのか。そんなことはどうでもいいことだ。
The time is 8 p.m. They'd finished eating. Guy had been led into a room much like Kurtz's and was now looking through the glass window at the upper tier. It was a quiet district, filled with more silence than any place in the lower tier. Even the upper tier staircase parks weren't this quiet. The parks, at least, had signs of life. There were no warped birds or dogs or engine spirits here. The town felt practically uninhabited, which was very appropriate, in his opinion, since the Kurtz estate had only one resident. There was barely anything left of the Haram Abif house. Once he died, the mansion really would be uninhabited. Guy could tell just by looking at the place. He said his parents had both passed away. He was the last of the Hiram Abifs. Those words left his lips. His voice merely echoed in an empty room. Kia had gone out alone, after saying she wanted to explore the mansion. He was alone now. Normally, he'd never allow it. Nowhere in the lower tiers could that girl walk alone. However, there was no danger up here. There shouldn't be. And the only time a creature ever manifested in the upper tiers was during the revival 10 years ago, and the records said that one was successfully subjugated. The few records of creature subjugation, one of them was in the upper tier. This place was better protected than anywhere in the city. No monsters ever appeared here. It's been said that even engine spirits were unheard of. Nothing but a rumor that a dragon was hiding in the city's core, an enormous pillar penetrating from the great underground engines to the upper tier. But that dragon should never fly again. This ward is safe because it was protected by safety mechanisms and upper tier soldiers, and because there's no one here.
何？一人で窓なんか見て。そんなにガラス窓が珍しいかしら。
ええ、ここまで透明度の高いものもね。
She hadn't knocked. The heir of the Sentinel House had walked into Guy's signed room like it was nothing. He had heard her footsteps coming. She hadn't tried to hide them. Guy turned around and looked at her. He looked with a lingering phenomenon equation in his right eye. A change in body temperature, chases of assorted mental excitement. Unchanged since dinner. Something had happened when she talked to Kia.
キーアは？
お屋敷の中を歩くと、クレツ氏の許可を得ています。
そう。迷子にならないといいわね。
見取り図をいただいています。大丈夫でしょう。
そう。遅くなったら迎えに行ってあげて。迷子になるとかわいそうだから。
はい。
She's worried about her. He looked at Sarah's face, expecting to see the same expression as before.
いい子ね。あの子。仮装に置いておくのが忍びない。
もったいないお言葉です、レディーさん。
そんな風に言わないで。私はあなたを信じることにしたの。
はい。
Trust me.
私はあなたのことを警戒していたわ。でも、やめることにした。私はあの子と話したか あなたを信じる。それにもう私には他に何も当てにない。
Sarah made the request. She thought it would help me.
僕は僕の仕事をするだけですよ。そう依頼されている。
彼を助けて。
そうするつもりです、レディ。
彼を死なせないで。
死なせはしない。僕はもうその依頼を。
He looked into her eyes. Within them, nothing was fabricated. A strong, strong will. She wasn't clinging onto someone. She was resolved to fight against something. What magic did Kia use on her? The princess's eyes are just...
レディ先見の僕に二重の依頼は必要な。彼を今のままの状態にはさせない。すでに僕は依頼を受けている。
Ladies and gentlemen, this is where we're going to end things here for this episode of Sekien no Inganock. Because, well, this seems like a good place. Alright. So, we met Sarah. We met Kurtz. And we found out that the classic childhood friend trope is hard at work here. With, you know, Sarah loving Kurtz. Does Kurtz love Sarah, though? That is the question, is it not? Are her feelings reciprocated? Or is he trying to distance himself from her because he knows that he's going to die and he does not want her to get attached? Ooh, I don't know. Just nothing but poppycock and hypotheticals at this point. Next time, we'll delve deeper into this mystery. See what's going on with Kurtz and this amneral poisoning. Could it be something is giving it to him by force without his knowledge? Could be interesting, right? He has the effects but has no memory of taking it. Did Magdal remember taking it? I think she did. But could the amneral have an effect of him forgetting he's taking it? But then again, didn't Guy say that his mental faculties were fine? If that's the case, then he has no memory issues like Magdal had. He's not living in a deluded world. Correct? Interesting. It's just seeming to destroy his body. Well, let's see what happens in the next video, of course. So until then, folks, thank you for watching, and I hope you look forward to the next video. So until then,